The Manderlys are no Northmen, not down deep. 'Twas no more than 900 years ago when they came north, laden down with all their gold and gods. They'd been great lords on the Mander until they overreached themselves and the Green Hands slapped them down. The Wolf King took their gold, but he gave them land and let them keep their gods. Godric Borrell to Davos Seaworth. A Dance with Dragons Chapter 9, Davos 1. House Manderly of White Harbor is one of the most important noble houses of the north, ruling from their seat of the new castle within the city of White Harbor. The sigil depicts a white merman with dark green hair, beard and tail, bearing a black trident on a green-blue field. The Manderlys originally hailed from Dunstonbury in the Reach, but were driven into exile by House Gardner. They were then welcomed into the north by the Kings of Winter of House Stark, who granted them the seat of the Wolf's Den. From that ancient stronghold, the Manderlys expanded and developed White Harbor into the only true city in the north, a major centre of trade and wealth. Wyman Manderly, Lord of White Harbor, claims influence over all the lands and houses east of the mouth of the White Knife River, including houses Locke, Wolffield, and Flint's of Widow's Watch. The Manderlys' domain also encompasses the Sheep's Head Hills and the Broken Branch, along with the sworn allegiances of Ramsgate. Their bannermen include roughly a dozen petty lords and as many as 100 landed knights. Several members of House Manderly, including Torrhen, Wyman, Willis and Wendell, are notable for their corpulence. Marlon Manderly in particular is described as both taller and heavier than Davos Seaworth. It's not clear if members of the house have always favoured these physical traits, or if this is a more recent development. Unlike most northern houses which follow the old gods, the Manderlys have retained their adherence to the faith of the Seven, as they did during their time in the south. They also claim membership of the Order of the Green Hand, despite the fact the ancient knightly order was destroyed at the Field of Fire during Aegon's conquest. House Manderly in its most ancient lineage once dwelled along the banks of the great river Mander in the Reach, and some traditions claim the river itself was named after them, while some argue that they took the name of the river itself. Whatever the case, they became a powerful noble house, descended from the very first of the First Men. They ruled from their castle Dunstonbury and maintained a long-standing and bitter rivalry with House Peak. During the reign of the Gardner kings in the Reach, King Gwaine III Gardner successfully persuaded Lords Manderly and Peak to submit their dispute to his judgment and swear fealty for their lands, bringing a temporary end to hostilities without bloodshed. Like the other houses of the Reach, the Manderlys are believed to have abandoned the old gods of the First Men in favour of the faith of the Seven after the Gardner kings welcomed the Andals into the Reach. Near the end of the long reign of King Garth X Gardner, a succession crisis emerged. The ageing and increasingly senile king had no sons, only daughters. One was wed to a Lord Manderly, another to a Lord Peak. Each lord sought to place his wife upon the throne, reigniting the centuries-old rivalry with intrigue, betrayal and murder. The conflict eventually erupted into open war, drawing in other lords of the Reach on both sides. The resulting anarchy endured for nearly 10 years, until Sir Osmond Tyrell, the High Steward of the Reach, united the remaining lords and defeated both House Peak and House Manderly. Osmond then elevated a distant cousin of the late king to the throne as King Mern VI Gardner, bringing the crisis to an end. At some point, seemingly thousands of years ago, House Manderly overextended its influence and was ultimately driven from the Reach by House Gardner. According to Maester Yandel, the exile of House Manderly was carried out by Lord Lomere Peak at the command of King Pericon III Gardner, who had grown weary of the Manderlys' increasing power and prominence within the Reach. As a result of their expulsion, House Peak was able to seize the Manderly castle of Dunstonbury, taking their considerable wealth with them. The Manderlys fled north, where they were received by House Stark of Winterfell and accepted as bannermen. The Starks granted them the dilapidated old castle of the Wolf's Den and charged them with defending the mouth of the White Knife River in exchange for a sworn oath of perpetual loyalty to House Stark. This act of refuge and trust forged a deep and enduring loyalty within House Manderly towards their new liege lords. The exact date of House Manderly's arrival in the north is unclear. In 211 AC, Lady Rohanne Webber suggested that the Manderlys fled the Reach 1,000 years earlier. Lord Godric Borrell places their arrival at no more than 900 years, prior to 300 AC. In contrast, Wyman Manderly and Maester Yandel date the family's settlement in the north at roughly 1,000 years prior to Aegon's conquest, with Yandel describing it as some 1,000 years before the conquest. Taken together, these accounts place the Manderlys' arrival sometime between 1000 BC and 600 BC. Using all the wealth they had brought from the Reach, House Manderly constructed the city of White Harbor, which they continued to expand and develop over the centuries. Though the smallest of the 5 cities in Westeros, White Harbor serves as the principal northern port for trade and naval transportation prior to the founding of King's Landing. During Aegon's conquest, the then known as the Aegon Fort, White Harbor was also the newest city in the Seven Kingdoms. The new castle, built to replace the aging Wolf's Den, bears a strong resemblance to Dunstonbury, their former seat in the Reach, as one of the very few northern houses to follow the faith of the Seven rather than the old gods. The Manderlys have a strong tradition of knighthood, uncommon in most of the north. If Winterfell is the heart of the north, White Harbor was its mouth. The Thoughts of Davos Seaworth. A Dance with Dragons Chapter 9. Davos 1. White Harbor, the city controlled by House Manderly, lies on the eastern shore of the White Knife, where the river empties into the broad waters of the Bight. The city is noted for its cleanliness and order, with wide, straight cobbled streets that allow for easy passage by foot or on horse. Its buildings are constructed from whitewashed stone, each topped with a steeply pitched roof of dark grey slate, giving the city a striking and uniform appearance, uncommon in the rest of Westeros. The city is protected by a dedicated force of guardsmen, who patrol both the streets and the harbour. White Harbor thrives as the centre of trade and craftsmanship in the north. Its markets are abundant with seafood, reflecting the bounty of the nearby Bight and the White Knife. Skilled shipwrights maintain the fleets that travel frequently between the city and the Three Sisters, while the silversmiths produce finely worked goods prized across the north. The city is also famed for its beer, including a golden ale, yellow beer, and a thick black stout renowned as far afield as Braavos and the ports of Ibn. White Harbor trades wool, wood, and hides with the sistermen, receiving crabs and fish and goat cheese in return, forming a network of maritime commerce that sustains the city's wealth. The new castle is the current seat of House Manderly, built atop a hill overlooking White Harbor's walls and both of its harbours. Its pale stone construction is reminiscent of Dunstonbury, the Manderlys' ancestral seat, along the Mander River in the Reach. From the castle, the mermaid sigil of House Manderly flies proudly from the towers, constant reminder of the house's authority in history. A broad, steep street known as Castle Stair runs from the old Wolf's Den to the new castle. Beneath the streets lie a secret passage, providing a hidden route between the two fortifications. Inside the new castle, the Manderlys display the trappings of their long history. Hallways are adorned with faded banners, broken shields, rusted swords from ancient victories, and carved wooden figures taken from the prows of ships. The Merman's Court serves as the Great Hall, where the Lords of House Manderly hold audience and conduct affairs of governance. Outside its doors stand 2 statues of mermen, carved from marble, symbolic guardians of the hall. The chambers of the new castle are unlike many in the north. They are large and airy, well furnished, befitting a house of wealth and prestige. One chamber, which grants secret access to the castle stair passage, features wooden beams and walls of lath and plaster. The room contains a Moorish carpet upon the floor, beeswax candles arranged around a table, and a sheepskin map of the north affixed to the wall, reflecting the Manderlys' ongoing awareness of regional affairs and politics, and their role in the northern defence. Between House Manderly arriving in the north and Aegon's conquest, very little is known. But in the wake of the conquest, a Sir Warwick Manderly aided Queen Visenya Targaryen in putting down the Sistermen rebellion. As part of the settlement that followed, Lord Steffan Sunderland sent one of his sons to be fostered by House Manderly, helping secure peace and loyalty and build closer ties between the Sistermen and the north. A Mara Manderly would later serve as a companion to Queen Alysanne Targaryen at Dragonstone in 55 AC. Her father, Lord Theomore Manderly, would later host that same Queen Alysanne during her royal progresses through the north, when she stopped at White Harbor in 58 AC. Mara's sister Jessamine acted as Alysanne's cupbearer during the feast. Years later, in 86 AC, Lord Theomore was betrothed to Princess Visera Targaryen, one of the younger daughters of King Jaehaerys and Queen Alysanne, though the marriage never took place, as the willful princess died after being thrown from her horse while racing drunkenly through the streets of King's Landing, mere days before she was supposed to travel north for the marriage. House Manderly would subsequently give support to Princess Rhaenys Targaryen and the claim of Laenor Velaryon at the Great Council of 101 AC, held at Harrenhal, along with several other of the northern houses. During the Targaryen civil war known as the Dance of the Dragons that followed the death of King Viserys I in 129 AC, Prince Jaehaerys Velaryon, eldest son of Rhaenyra Targaryen, journeyed to White Harbor and Winterfell, where he successfully won the northern allegiances to the Black faction, after agreeing that his youngest daughter would wed Prince Joffrey Velaryon once the war concluded. Lord Desmond Manderly sent forces to support Rhaenyra, led by his sons Sir Medric and Sir Torrhen. The brothers were well received at the court in King's Landing, especially when compared to the more austere Northmen who served under Lord Rickon Stark. After the war, Torrhen Manderly was named one of the regents for King Aegon III, though he resigned in 132 AC, following the deaths of his father and brother from a winter fever. When Aegon III reached his majority in 136 AC, he brought the regency to an end, and dismissed Lord Manderly from the office of Hand of the King. Lady Jane Manderly would later go on to marry a Rickon Stark, the eldest son and presumed heir of Rickon Stark, and together they had two daughters, Serena and Sansa. Another Lady Manderly wed a Rodwell Stark, and became Lady of Winterfell upon her husband's succession. If I thought to see war again in my lifetime, I should have eaten a few less ills. Lord Wyman Manderly to Catelyn Stark, A Game of Thrones Chapter 55, Catelyn 8. It seems that members of House Manderly were among the northern lords to accompany the children of Lord Rickon Stark, Brandon, Eddard, Lyanna and Benjen, to the great tourney of Harrenhal in 281 AC. When Lord Eddard Stark summoned the banners of the North to rise in Robert's rebellion against King Aerys II after the deaths of his father and brother in King's Landing, Lord Wyman led his forces south in support. He would fight at the Battle of the Trident, and later rewarded his retainer Sir Bartimus for saving his life by appointing him the Castellan of the Wolf's Den, which now served as White Harbor's prison. Wyman Manderly is the current Lord of White Harbor at the start of the main books. He also bears a number of honorary titles, including Warden of the White Knife, Shield of the Faith, Defender of the Dispossessed, Lord Marshal of the Mander, and Knight of the Order of the Green Hand. A widower of 8 years, Wyman has two grown sons, Sir Willis and Sir Wendell Manderly. Nearly 60 years of age, he is enormously fat, with a vast belly and fingers likened to sausages. He has pale blue eyes and a beard, and is said to possess 4 chins. His size has grown so great that he can no longer ride a horse, and must instead be carried in a litter, earning him the mocking nickname, Lord Too Fat to Sit a Horse. Wyman is outwardly gentle, known for his loud and booming laughter and friendly demeanour. Among his own people, he is mockingly referred to as Lord Lamprey. By his own admission, and due largely to his appearance, many consider him a craven and a fool. This reputation, however, is deliberately cultivated, for beneath the facade, Wyman is shrewd, calculating, and highly intelligent. He is also, like many of his house, fiercely loyal to House Stark. Lord Manderly favours rich and luxurious clothing, including a blue-grey velvet doublet embroidered with golden thread. His mantle is fastened at the shoulders with a golden trident. A prestigious eater, he takes great pleasure in food, particularly boiled eggs, capons, eels, lampreys, pork pies, porridge, and sausages. In the Merman's Court, Lord Manderly sits upon a large and heavily cushioned throne, befitting his size and status. After learning of the attempt on his son's life, Lord Eddard Stark commands his wife, Catelyn, to instruct Lord Wyman to strengthen the defences of White Harbor, ensuring the northern port city is prepared for any threat when the realm grows increasingly unstable. Following her departure from the Vale of Arryn, Catelyn travels to White Harbor and meets with the Manderlys. In the wake of the arrest of Eddard Stark in King's Landing after the death of Robert Baratheon, a sizable Manderly force commanded by Sir Willis and Sir Wendell Manderly marches south to join Robb Stark at Moat Cailin in the conflict against House Lannister and what would become the War of the Five Kings. This host numbers close to 1,500 men, including approximately 20 knights with their squires, 200 mounted lancers, swordsmen and free riders, and substantial infantry armed with spears, pikes and tridents. Lord Wyman remains at White Harbor to oversee the city's fortifications and maintain order, ensuring his lands are secure while his forces fight in the south. While attending the harvest feast of Winterfell, Lord Wyman meets with Bran Stark, who is acting as Lord, Sir Roderick Cassel and Maester Lewin. During their discussions, he offers to mint coinage for the now King Robb Stark to support the northern war effort, detailing the extensive defences of White Harbor and proposing the construction of a new royal fleet of war galleys. Sir Roderick agrees to communicate this proposal to Robb. Later during the festivities, Roderick commands Hother and Mors Umber to work with Wyman in construction of longships intended to bolster the northern naval strength. Lady Donella Hornwood, who is of House Manderly before her marriage, becomes a widow after her husband, Lord Hallis Hornwood, falls at the Battle of the Green Fork. During the same harvest feast, Lord Wyman presses a claim to the estate. However, she is forcibly married to Ramsay Snow, the bastard son of Roose Bolton, and locked away to die. In retaliation, Wyman moves swiftly to try and seize the Hornwood estate, preventing Ramsay from taking control, and Manderly knights engage Bolton forces within Hornwood's forest. Reports of these skirmishes reach Winterfell though, and Sir Roderick Cassel, though he lacks the manpower to intervene directly, orders an end to the fighting. Meanwhile, in the southern theatres of war, Sir Wendell Manderly accompanies Catelyn Stark to negotiate with King Renly and King Stannis Baratheon, bearing the Stark banner during the parley at Storm's End. At the same time, Sir Willis Manderly remains a prisoner at Harrenhal, spending much of his captivity in the kitchens. He is among the northern captives Tyrion Lannister considers trading in exchange of his cousin, who was captured at the Battle of the Whispering Wood. Willis is ultimately freed when Roose Bolton seizes Harrenhal. Following Theon Greyjoy's capture of Winterfell, intelligence reports indicate that Lord Wyman has dispatched a dozen barges up the White Knife River filled with knights and siege engines to assist in the recapture of the Stark seat. During Theon's parley with Sir Roderick Cassel outside Winterfell's gate, he observes a formidable line of mounted Manderly knights, a clear demonstration of the northern resolve. Despite the show's strength, the northern forces are betrayed by House Bolton during the ensuing Battle of Winterfell, and the northern army divides at the Twins. Sir Wendell accompanies Robb Stark on the campaign to liberate Riverrun. Though fully grown, he is counted among the 30 young sons of northern lords, of whom make up Robb's personal guards, serving with distinction. Meanwhile, Sir Willis commands the White Harbor infantry alongside Roose Bolton during the southern campaign and is ultimately captured at the Battle of the Green Fork, which is ultimately how he got captured, and sent to Harrenhal as a prisoner. 1,000 years before the Conquest, a promise was made, and oaths were sworn in the Wolf's Den before the old gods and the new, when we were sore bested and friendless, hounded from our homes in peril of our lives. The wolves took us in and nourished us and protected us against our enemies. The city is built upon the land they gave us. In return we swore that we should always be their men, Stark men. Wyler Manderly to the Merman's Court, A Dance with Dragons, Chapter 19, Davos 3. As King Robb Stark marches to the Twins to attend the wedding of Lord Edmure Tully in 300 AC, Sir Wendell Manderly is assigned to command a royal baggage train, ensuring the protection of the supplies, provisions and equipment vital to the Northern Army. Sir Willis Manderly, in turn, commands the rearguard under Lord Roose Bolton during the same march. During the crossing of the Ruby Ford of the Trident, the army was ambushed by the forces of Sir Gregor Clegane. In the ensuing attack, the rearguard was all but annihilated, and Sir Willis was captured for a second time, his release thwarted by Lord Bolton's inability to prevent the Mountain from overwhelming his troops. Willis was returned to captivity at Harrenhal following the battle. At the Twins, Sir Wendell Manderly perishes during the Red Wedding, struck fatally by an arrow that entered his open mouth. a grievous loss to House Manderly. Meanwhile, a raven arrived at White Harbor bearing a plea from Maester Aemon of Castle Black and the Night's Watch, requesting aid in the defence of the wall against the wildling host. Intelligence from King's Landing suggests that House Manderly was considering an alliance with House Bolton. According to Cersei Lannister, Lord Wyman was contemplating marrying both of his granddaughters into House Frey and permitting Lannister ships to enter the port of White Harbor. Reports reached the Iron Throne that Wyman had executed Sir Davos Seaworth when the latter sought to negotiate an alliance with Stannis Baratheon. In response, Queen Cersei sanctioned the release of Wylis Manderly, who had survived the conflict, and permitted him safe passage home. At Harrenhal, Sir Jaime provided Wylis with an escort to Maidenpool, ensuring that he could travel safely to ship and return to White Harbor. Upon his arrival at White Harbor, Sir Davos Seaworth sought to persuade Lord Wyman Manderly to ally House Manderly with King Stannis Baratheon. What he found, however, was a city bustling with activity. 23 war galleys had been constructed in secret, unbeknownst to House Lannister. White Harbor was also filled with refugees, including many displaced from the Hornwood lands. Despite the protests of his granddaughters Wyla, Lord Wyman publicly denounced Davos in the presence of 3 Frey envoys, Jarrad, Rhaegar and Symond, signalling his apparent readiness to make peace with the Iron Throne and pledge fealty to Roose Bolton, newly appointed Warden of the North. As part of his ostensible submission, Wyman was to relinquish his claim to the Hornwood lands. Yet the Lord of White Harbor acted with cunning. He faked Davos' death by executing a condemned criminal in the Onion Knight's place, altering the corpse so it resembled him. Once Sir Wylis returned safely to White Harbor, Wyman instructed Robert Glover to release Davos from the Wolf's Den. Thereafter, Lord Manderly entrusted Davos with a secret mission to locate the still-living Rickon Stark, as confirmed by Wex Pike, in an effort to rally the Northern Lords against House Bolton and Frey. Maintaining the guise of loyalty to House Bolton, Lord Wyman later travels to Winterfell with a retinue of 300, ostensibly to answer Lord Roose Bolton's call to arms and attend the wedding of Ramsay Bolton to a so-called Arya Stark. During the feast, Wyman supplies food, including 3 pies, which are widely rumoured to have been made with the bodies of the Frey envoys who had vanished after departing White Harbor. While quartered within Winterfell, tensions arise between the Manderlys and the Freys. A jest by Lord Wyman regarding the death of little Walder Frey escalates into violent conflict, resulting in multiple casualties on both sides, leaving Wyman himself wounded.